Good morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to your City Council meeting for today, which is the 24th of April, 2007. I want to welcome members of the public and our viewing audience on Channel 35, LA City View, where we broadcast live each council meeting and rebroadcast in the evening. We also are available online, and you can go to our city's homepage at www.lacity.org and click on the links to see live streaming webcast video of our council meetings. Finally, if you're not close to a television that has cable or a computer, you can always call in through an audio service we call Council Phone and listen to the proceedings of our City Council or any of our committee meetings. That's at 213-621-CITY. Our agendas are available online, also at lacity.org, through the City Clerk's office or here in the John Ferraro Council Chambers, room 340 of City Hall, where we meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. And we invite members of the public to join us here live in person and to testify on items which have been agendized for public comment or in general public comment, which is a time for people to speak on issues that are under our jurisdiction but are not formally on the agenda. We also have the capability to listen to you from Van Nuys City Hall, where we have teleconference facilities set up so that you may testify if that's closer to where you live, and we're able to watch you on television and here in council chambers. We do take the first Friday of the month to meet in our Van Nuys City Council chambers in our efforts to bring City Council closer to all Angelenos, and we also take the show on the road, most recently to South Los Angeles near the harbor in Council District 15. I want to thank the council members who are here pursuant to our own council rules on time. Council members Cardenas, Labange, Parks, Perry, Rosendahl, Wesson, and Zine. That gives us 8 members, and we are waiting 2 more. We have excused today Councilmember Reyes and Councilmember Smith. We also had Ms. Perry excused, but she is here. And we have Councilmember Alarcon we are waiting for, Councilmember Gruhl we are waiting for, Councilmember Hahn. We are awaiting Councilmember Huizar and Councilmember Weiss. If they would make their way to chambers as soon as possible, as soon as we have 2 more members, we will begin the meeting, and I want to thank members of our audience for their patience while we await those council members. Thank you. Thank you again to the council members who are here, Alarcon, Cardenas, Labange, Parks, Perry, Rosendahl, Wesson, and Zine. We are waiting 1 more member to begin our meeting, Councilmember Gruhl. If you will join us, Councilmember Hahn. If you will join us, Councilmember Huizar. If you will join us, and Councilmember Weiss. We are waiting one of those members, and until they are here, we cannot begin the meeting. We need 10 members or 2/3 of our body to constitute a quorum and to begin city business. So again, council members Gruhl, Hahn, Huizar, and Weiss, if one of you will please join us as soon as possible. Thank you. This is a final quorum call for council members Gruhl, Hahn, Huizar, and Weiss. As we approach 10 after the hour, if we don't have a council member the next couple minutes, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Han, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Westenstein, Garcetti, 11 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Weiss moves, Ms. Perry seconds. Without objection, that will be approved. Next item, please.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Alarcon moves and Mr. Cardenas seconds. Without objection, those commendatory resolutions will be approved as well. Next order of business.
And, Mr. President, this is Tuesday, and there is a flag salute.
Okay, if I can ask everybody in council chambers to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance, as is customary at the beginning of the week. And Ms. Perry, if you would be kind enough to lead us in the pledge.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Please place your right hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Perry. We have a special moment of inspiration as we begin our meetings. We often invite leaders from our community to say a word of inspiration for the city and for the City Council. And I would like to direct your attention to Ernesto Medina, who is a dear friend to the city, to myself, but also in his work in Echo Park with the Episcopal Diocese. And we wanted to welcome him here. He has presented before to this council a moment of inspiration, but as he enters a new chapter in his professional life, and those of us in Echo Park have the unfortunate but also very happy moment of wishing him well in the next incarnation of his career. We wanted to bring him here to say a few words. So, Father Medina, welcome. It's great to see you, and the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is an honor to come before this body once again. God bless you. Let us pray. Loving God, in your word, you have given us a vision of that holy city to which the nations of the world bring their glory. Behold and visit, we pray, the communities on this earth, especially this, the city of angels. Renew the ties of mutual regard which form our civic life. Continue to empower honest and able leaders. Enable us to eliminate poverty, prejudice, and oppression, that peace may prevail with righteousness and justice with order, and that women and men from different cultures and with differing talents may find with one another the fulfillment of their humanity. O God, the fountain of wisdom, whose will is good and gracious and whose law is truth, we pray you so to guide and bless our city council here assembled, that they may enact such laws as shall please you, to the glory of your name and the welfare of this people. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Father Medina. We appreciate you. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President, do you wish to take a public comment at this time?
Yes, let's go ahead and do that. I'd like to have our general public comment at this time, beginning with Michael Carrion. And then we'll go to Van Nuys for Miriam Fogler and Donna Pearman, and back here for Mr. Zumadog. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Michael Carrion, and I just had a few questions. I wonder why, Mr. Weiss, you're all upset about the, Mr. Weiss, speaking to you, please. This is why,
Excuse me, Mr. President. He could speak about the council members in the third person. He should not be talking directly to
okay,
the
can you
council
hold my
members.
time while he speaks?
We'll give you a couple extra seconds.
Okay.
If you could just address us generally, you can refer to us as individuals, but please, if you
Okay.
could address us generally.
I'd like
Thank
the
you.
city council to ask Mr. Weiss, or why Mr. Weiss is so upset about fire in his community. I've been here for months complaining about the lack of cleanup by the city. The city of Los Angeles, I've made statements, is the largest slumlord in the city of their vacant properties, their trees, and everything else. I have an interdepartment correspondence that was sent to Mr. Rosenthal on the 14th, which states that you guys are just abusing your trees. The city of Los Angeles is not maintaining their trees. Yet you're aware of it, but you do not acknowledge it so that you do not have to be liable for it. Now, the mayor wants to plant 1 million more, and I don't know who's going to pay for that. But I have called Mr. Smith's office, I have called Mr. Labange's office, and I have called Mr. Rosenthal's office regarding this memo. No one wants to say nothing. The city is saying that you guys are not maintaining your trees. Yet, when a claim comes in, you guys say we have no knowledge of it. We're not going to pay it. We don't know our trees are bad. This statement is put out by your forest department head, I can't remember his name, Mr. Gonzalez, okay? You guys are not keeping up with your trees. If you go right across the street to a neighboring city, Alhambra, they planted the same trees at the same time, and they're not falling down, they're not falling apart. Look at the memo and pay your claims. It's not about lawsuits, it's about doing the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. Carrillo.
Your
Appreciate it.
trees are damaging people's property. Mr.
The next speaker is in Van Nuys, Miriam Fogler, and then Donna Pearman. Good morning.
The gentleman has a good point, and concerning my street, it was supposed to be paved last week because of the rain, and I got a graffiti in front of my house, so I'd like to get it paved as soon as possible. Could you please take care of that, Mr. Garcetti, and the city council get that done, please? And I'm here to talk about the main things about the taxes and the right to bear and keep arms. The taxes is something that I'm very, very opposed to unless it's a necessity, unless it's urgent. Now, the gang prevention programs, a $5 parcel seems not very much, but that's just the beginning of taxation without being fair to us, because law-abiding people, good people who pay their taxes don't realize they're passing it on to themselves. When you see the gas prices at the pump have gone way up to $3.59, and how many people get a raise, like when I just read today that the pension board for the county just got themselves a 40% pay increase. Who gets that kind of raises? Only the leaders today have been getting it, and also the city council got $20,000 2 years in a row. I don't see anybody else getting that kind of raise. And number two, the right to keep arms, we have to keep that and not make it difficult for law-abiding citizens. Criminals are never going to obey these laws. 20,000 gun laws on the books, no matter how much you do with the ammunition, the criminals are always going to get the ammunition. So it's only against the people who are legitimate and have a right to have it that you're doing this to. And history repeats itself. Don't let it happen, because we had a lot of blood spilled for these precious rights, including the city council people. I'm telling you right now, this is affecting everybody here. Don't pass laws against yourselves, because you're just hurting yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Donna Pearman is our next speaker. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Labange, yes?
Complain about a location for graffiti. I know we have the graffiti hotline. Do we have her address or where it is, or someone in Van Nuys
We can look into that in Van Nuys, and in the meantime, of course, 311 will take care of anybody's
Right,
graffiti
but it's the
concern.
citizen who just spoke.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if we find out.
And we'll
thank
make
you.
sure that we get that information to her. Thank you, Mr. Labange. Donna Pearman is our next speaker.
Missed you last week. Anyway, one time I was going to speak on the redevelopment project in the so-called NoHo section, but I wasn't called because it was held. I just wanted to say that's another CA project. We don't need more fancy redevelopment, so it raises the rents and drives the small places away. I've seen places like thrift shops go away and leave all their stuff there. Businesses leave LA, and in the meantime, the small maintenance doesn't get done. As I said, I'm also on this street that didn't get paved. People moved their cars, and yet it didn't get paved. You'd rather have big, huge buildings and space-age looking redevelopment. And, oh, yeah, before I just wanted to say real quick that Mr. Cardenas, your outfit looked really cute last week with your cream tie, and Mr. Garcetti, you look really nice in your blue and white tie. But anyway, I really am against all this redevelopment, and you have to stop making big buildings downtown, because these people are going to leave LA because this is turning into a joke town. Okay, bye.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pearman. Zuma Dog is our next speaker here, and then Arnold Sachs will be after that. Mr. Sachs wants to come forward, and Candido Maris will be after that.
Great to be here for the first time ever. I took the bus. Thank you, Santa Monica, the city of Santa Monica, for busing Zuma Dog down here. It was an express, and I'll be here all the time now because it's cheap as heck. I'd like to ask City Council, can you please talk to Councilmember Labange about cleaning up the spilt paint on the streets in this district? We're trying to combat graffiti, not spill paint all over the streets. It looks crazy. Can you please get the graffiti crew out there? Also, West Magnolia and Valley Village, there is a tract map hearing, and Wendy Gruhl put a motion in from the parking committee to please, it's a hazardous street, and she wanted to see a complete a cumulative study in the neighborhood. So there's a hearing on May 1st. I hope that that is continued, because I don't think we can be approving track maps before the city council member gets her request for her motion. So we'll look for continuance on that. Please continue it now so we don't have to show up on May 1st. City Attorney Rocky Delgadillo, he has an economic development director. Why does the city attorney have an economic developer? That doesn't make sense. Could be a conflict of interest. Neighborhood Council, thank you, Carol Thwarp. I talked to her yesterday. I could tell you, Neighborhood Council, to get the respect you need, start dragging people to those meetings. And if you want to have a stake in your community, call 311, ask where your next Neighborhood Council meeting is. You won't be taken seriously till you take care of that. $400 million state park bond bamboozle. Assembly member Kevin De Leon, he had a private meeting. They tried to keep me out of a private meeting on Friday. It's about $400 million in parks money that the state has appropriated. He wants to get his hands on it, which is good. You want your share of $400 million for the park, except there's something called a sunset clause. And what he does is you have the nonprofits that get the grant money, and then those nonprofits are pretty closely tied to the people involved in the development. The money's given, they buy the land, there's a sunset clause, and if the parks aren't developed by then, they can do whatever they want with that land, and Zuma Dog says that's going to be high-density condos, so let's look into that. And also the CRA, $14 million bond for housing in Boyle Heights. I'm going to be watching very closely to see where that goes. Zuma Dog, you're on the record.
Arnold Sachs is our next speaker, and then Candido Maris.
Good morning, council members. Thank you.
Good morning.
This is public notice that MTA is having a hearing next month regarding raising the fares across the board. So if you wait till the end of the month, or you wait till the 24th of May when they have the hearing, that'll be too late. I strongly suggest you go to your neighborhood council meetings, you go to your city council meetings, you talk to your representatives, and let your voice be heard, because in front of the MTA board, you don't have a chance. This is just a public announcement to let you know the 24th of May is when they're going to raise the rates on your bus ride, your bus passes, and your all-around transportation. And they don't even know what they're doing with the money they have now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Candido Maris is our next speaker, and then Jim Clark will follow him.
Good morning, Mr. President, council members. Mr. Greg Smith, you're not here, but thank you very much for allowing us to join you on Saturday to clean up a part of the city. Those of us from Van Nuys that were there, the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council, had a great time. Newspaper today, counseling failures. It talks about neighborhood councils and their failures, the fact that people don't recognize neighborhood councils. I guess they don't see all the work that neighborhood councils are doing. You have a project on the agenda today. Item 38 talks about the Toluca Lake doing a medium in your area. Last night we had the Education and Neighborhood Council Committee, and Mr. Alicant, thank you very much for the opportunity to be there. I wasn't able to speak, I had to leave. But again, it was an open process. We were able to hear what was going on in regards to the possible name change of the West Van Nuys Lake Balboa Neighborhood Council. The thing is, we have a process going here. And if people want to get involved, all they have to do is join Neighborhood Council. And Mr. President, as you know, they can show up here. I've been here since 1991. Take a look at the audience. If people really wanted to be involved, all they had to do was contact their neighborhood council or their councilman, and we would have more people involved. Thank you, Mr. President.
Our next speaker is Jim Clark.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the City Council. I'm Jim Clark with the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. I'm here today with regard to the legislation that was passed two weeks ago on tenant relocation fees, which we had been at the table at the table for quite some time. This has been going on for a long time. And all along, we were told that those relocation fees were going to be for Ellis Act evictions only. The LA Times said this, every other paper said this. We were told by committees, staff members, at every hearing it had to do with Ellis Act evictions. And to our disappointment and our frustration and even outrage, we came to find out that the legislation inadvertently, I hope, included what we call good faith relocations. For example, if I bought a building and I wanted to move into it, I would now have to pay these outrageously high fees. These personal relocation and business relocations should not have been included in that legislation. And I want to make it clear that my 25,000 member organization is very disappointed that the good faith relocations were included in that legislation 2 weeks ago, and we'd like to see it reversed at some point in time. Sooner the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Melrose Larry Green is our final speaker.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Melrose Larry Green, and the reason why I'm here is a few things. Number one, this afternoon at 4 o'clock, I'm going to be over with Councilman LaBonge up in the Hollywood Hills at a ceremony honoring the firefighters who basically saved the Oakwood Garden Apartments over on Barham. And as the old Jewish Republican that I am, I'm going to run there. I'm going to run there thanks to MapQuest. I found out how to get there. I'm going to go through the Hollywood Hills, up there. It's 5 miles from my apartment in Hancock Park. So I'll be there today at 4 o'clock. Those of you watching live, come out and pay some respects. I don't care if you're Democrats or Republicans. This is a nonpartisan issue, keeping the city safe and beautiful. Secondly, I want to tell Herb Weston, my cat is fine. My cat is lovely. My cat is I call her my deputy. And I encourage everybody to adopt an animal. You know, it's tough being a Republican in Los Angeles, but I get such love from these two cats. And as we watch C-SPAN, we have a lot of great times together. Also, this Saturday is the LA Times Festival of Books. And although I'm pretty conservative, I read the LA Times, and I'm going to be there at UCLA. Hope you'll all go there, buy some books, be even smarter. And then Sunday, as if that's not enough, it's Israel Independence Day. Did you know I'm Jewish, Eric? I'm Jewish. I will be there. I know you're so active in the Home for the Aged out in Reseda. You're the president, Councilman Zion. I know you'll be there. And if you never had a falafel, and you never heard of Yoram Gaon or Dudu Fisher, they're two of the most famous singers in Israel. Yoram Gaon is the Frank Sinatra of Israel. And I know you're all busy, but, you know, send your deputies to your events on Sunday. And I hope everybody, I know, Wendy, you'll be there. I hope you'll be there also, Tony. I know you're a big fan of the Jewish people. I know you'll be there. And Eric, of course, you'll be there on Sunday. Is Woodley Park. And by the way, you can take the Orange Line. I took the subway here. Zumudor took the bus. I took the subway and the bus. We're doing a great job in the city of L.A. You're all good people. I don't care if you're Democrats. Thank you. I'm Melrose Larry Green.
I don't think you should. Thank you very much, Mr. Green. And that closes our general public comment. Madam Clerk, if we can run through the roll.
First item on the agenda is an item notice for public hearing, and the recommendation for council action is to open the hearing and continue the hearing and ordinance to May 15th.
Okay, is there any objection, colleagues, to opening that and continuing to the 15th of May? Seeing none, so ordered. Next items?
Item number 2 is also a public hearing item, and the applicant consents to a continuance to May 15th.
Okay, without objection, then we will continue item 2 till the 15th of May as well. Next items.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 3 through 15.
Okay, colleagues, the specials 3 through 15. Mr. Zine?
15. 3, 10, 13,
I think that's over your quota. 3,
Yeah.
10, 13, and 15?
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
Mr. President, if we could, the applicant has agreed to a continuance on item number 7 for 2 weeks.
Okay,
We do have a letter to that effect.
that will take us
And
to the 8th of May,
Also like to call item 14 special.
14, from Ms. Gruhl. Okay, any other specials, colleagues? Seeing none, let's go ahead, we'll open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That's approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held, items 16 through 39. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Any specials, colleagues? We have cards on 20, 28, 35, and 39. So we'll call those specials. Any other specials, colleagues? Seeing none, let's go ahead and open the roll on the balance, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. If there's no objection, we will send 32, 32, and 36 forthwith. Okay? Next items?
That would take council back to the items called special. First item called special was item number 3, and that was by Councilmember Zine.
We have number 3, Mr. Zine, as the first one. So item number 3, and I'd like to recognize Mr. Zine, please.
Thank you. Do we have someone from the CEO's office on number 3? I have a couple technical questions on that. Okay, let's hold that on the desk. The CEO's office is on the way down for item number 3.
All right. Next item, please.
Next item is item number 10, and that was called special by Councilmember Zine.
Mr. Zine, we have number 10 now.
We have someone from the Police Department, DOT, on number 10, please. I think this is the LAPD Selective Traffic Enforcement Program.
Yes, why don't you can come forward to the table. So
From OTS. Right up at the table, right up here. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
If you could identify yourself.
I'm Captain.
I shouldn't be saying that to a captain of police, but
I'm Captain Jeffrey Greer from Metropolitan Division.
Officer Don Inman from Traffic Coordination Section, Emergency Operations Division.
good morning.
And I'm representing Captain McCarthy, who was unable to be here this morning.
Okay. The question I have on this Selective Traffic Enforcement Program grant from OTS, is this a citywide program, or is it specifically designed for certain areas of the city?
It is citywide, sir.
Motorcycle officers, traffic officers, patrol officers, the people going to be involved in it?
Yes, we sent the correspondence to the 4 geographic bureaus, and it looks as though each traffic division will coordinate the activities for each bureau.
Okay, the concern I have with this is, I know that in South Traffic, for example, they have a number of motorcycle officers that are now working gang details. Does this jeopardize our grant and where are we getting the personnel? Because we're not seeing a great emphasis on traffic enforcement, but the diversion of those officers to gang enforcement. Does that then jeopardize our grant program? Does that jeopardize the money that we're receiving? And where are we getting the bodies to do that deployment while we have officers working gang enforcement?
All the
Motorcycle officers, I should say.
All of the objectives that are set forth in the grant are funded through overtime. Therefore, we've never found an issue of finding officers who want to work overtime, especially motor officers. And if a certain traffic division cannot fill their spots with motor officers, they can call other traffic divisions and use their motor officers to help out.
And this is a grant for $1,180,000.
Yes.
Will that be distributed equally throughout the city of Los Angeles, or will it be based upon the fatal injury crashes that occur?
Currently, we are doing a four-way split between the four bureaus. They will each have $128,000 spent prior to September 30th, 2007, and then each bureau will have $128,000 spent before September 30th, 2008.
And is it geared towards specific enforcement, or DUI enforcement, or speed enforcement, or red light enforcement? Are there special calibers, special categories?
There are specific objectives that each traffic division or bureau has to achieve. For example, before September 30th, they have to spend $46,000 conduct 4 sobriety checkpoints.
I'm sorry, they have to conduct what kind of checkpoints?
Sobriety checkpoints.
Sobriety checkpoints.
They have to conduct driver's license patrols, looking for people with suspended driver's licenses. They have to conduct 3 repetitive DUI offender stakeouts. I'm not sure if you're aware of Sergeant Dave Ferry up at...
Why don't you explain that to the TV audience,
okay,
what that program entails?
That's where these are the
Hold on,
worst...
Mr. President, Mr. President, it's too loud. We can't really hear him, it's too loud. Thank you.
If you could ask everybody to take their conversations either outside or behind council chambers, please, as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Continue,
These
please.
DUI offenders are the worst of the worst. They're offenders who keep on driving with a suspended license after it's been revoked or suspended multiple times by the courts and by DMV. And so what we do is we have officers who basically find out where they live, watch them get in the car, and then arrest them for driving on suspended driver's license and impound their car for 30 days.
What kind of results are we finding with that?
Oh, very successful. In fact, up at Valley Traffic, Sergeant Dave Ferry has a program where it's been, it's remarkable what he's been achieving.
So these are people who've been arrested, gone to court, been convicted, been ordered not to drive, repeated times,
Yes.
continue to violate the law. So finally, we stake on them, and they drive, then they get arrested, their car gets impounded.
Correct.
Okay.
They also are going to conduct DUI offender court stings. That's a similar program where officers will generally be undercover. They'll be at a courthouse where a judge will suspend a license of a convicted DUI offender. The officers will basically watch the person walk outside, see if they get in their car and drive off again. If they do, they'll stop them, arrest them, and generally take them back up to the court and have them answer in front of the judge again why they're disobeying the judge's order. And that's been a very successful program also. And also we are conducting seatbelt patrols.
Anything that you want to add? Because I think it's money well invested. I know that the concern about traffic collisions, and can you give us a picture, A's and K's citywide? Are we up, down, or in between?
You know, for this quarter, looks like we're going down. This last quarter, October, excuse me.
How about year-to-date? Do we have something close to that year-to-date citywide?
You know, I don't have my year-to-date stats with me, sir.
Okay. But this quarter, what do we show?
Generally, we're on downward trend.
Citywide?
Yes.
So this will continually emphasize the issue of traffic safety, traffic enforcement.
Yes.
And as my colleague Tom Labange always asks, how many people have been affected by traffic? Everybody raises their hands, have been affected by traffic.
Yes.
So it's a worthwhile program. $1 million plus investment in safety for the people of Los Angeles.
Yes.
What I want to do is just explain, because we have people that sometimes don't understand what happens with the money and the programs and how we want to keep people safe in the city of Los Angeles. So thank you both.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. Mr. Labange.
I just wanted to stand on traffic again as Mr. Zine spoke. What are the 3 things you can do about traffic?
Engineering, education, and enforcement.
Right, engineering, education, and enforcement, and it's so important on all those. Members, 43,000 Americans lose their life in traffic accidents and pedestrian accidents. Unfortunately, about 60,000 to 17,000 lose their life to homicide victims, but 43,000 Americans in accidents every year. Traffic is so important, so I appreciate your effort. Traffic is the most underrated action of the police department that needs to be elevated in ways to improve quality and safety, and I know you're doing their job, so I just wanted to stand and thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. You can open the roll on the item. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
That is approved. Okay, next item, please.
Mr. President, I believe staff is here on item number 3.
Okay, Mr. Zine, do we have the staff here? Number 3?
Yes. Royce?
If I could ask the gentleman just to switch out for this item? Thank you.
I'm sure they'd be interested in listening to the drop program. The extension that we're talking about, how long is this extension on this particular motion that we have before us on item number 3?
This would permit the extension for up to 5 years.
For what?
For up to 5 years for the command staff.
Because I understand that we have some technical issues that wanted to adjust with the continuation of the drop program. I was told that this is a short-term extension, not the 5-year extension. This is simply going to give us an opportunity to continue the drop, but those issues that we went through, the, shall we say, areas of concern were going to be worked out. Now, if we continue this for 5 years, when are we going to work out the issues that have been of concern?
The extension does require that we have another actuarial study, which will occur this summer, and then following the study, there will be a determination of whether or not the program still remains cost neutral. If the actuary finds that there are any issues with that, we would have to go back and make changes to ensure that the program continues to be cost neutral. We're also looking at this time right now at potential adjustments related to workers' comp issues that have come up before, and I think we brought that to the last EERC meeting, and we're continuing to discuss that issue right now.
So this extension will not prevent us from making modifications to the drop program in order to keep it as we wish to keep it, a positive program to keep people working within the police and fire departments.
That's absolutely correct, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we don't bypass that issue that has been of concern where there's been some abuse by some individuals in the drop program.
No, we will be able to continue to address those issues.
And the other question I have, the current program is scheduled to end this month?
Yes, at the end of, I think it's the end of April, yes.
And then this continuation and the analysis that's going to take place, they're going to
The continuation commences May 1st. The analysis will take place during the next, I'd say, 6 to 9 months, depending on the timetable of the actuarial study.
Okay, but the question is, if we continue it under this ordinance for another 5 years, how are we going to be able to make adjustments once we continue it?
The agreements that we reached with the unions on this program and what's in the ordinance does allow for those adjustments to be made.
So there's an opener.
Yes, there is.
And also, I noticed that in this particular ordinance change, the chief of police, I think I read the chief of police and the fire chief, they're included in this?
No, they're excluded. This particular amendment is just for the command staff. The program was extended for the rank and file several months ago.
Well, according to what it says on item number 3, and I'll read it, all members of the fire and police pension plan, including chief of police, chief engineer of the fire department, and port warden, if they are members of the plan, are eligible to enter drop no later than April 30, 2007.
If they're already members.
Well, the chief of police has a 10-year contract, a 5-year with a 5-year renewal. So how is the chief of police going to be eligible if he can only remain under the charter, Measure F, a total of 10 years? Drop wouldn't apply.
My recollection is if the chief was in it, if there was a chief or a fire chief or a police chief who was already a member of DROP when they became eligible to be chief, if they hadn't come from the outside, then they would continue to be eligible to remain in DROP.
Okay, all right. So it wouldn't apply for someone coming from the outside under the charter that we have where a chief can do a maximum of 10 years?
That's correct, because they have to be a member of the fire and police pension system, and they have to be vested in order to become eligible for DROP.
Okay, and a chief that comes from the outside, are they under the fire and police pension plan, or are they under a different plan?
I believe they're in the Lacers plan.
In the Lacers plan?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair. Mr. President.
Thank you. If we can open the roll on this item. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
Hold on.
12 ayes.
That is approved. If there's no objection, we'll send that forthwith.
I woke up early.
No objection noted. I'll send forthwith. Next item, please.
Next item is item 13, and that was called special by Councilmember Zine.
Back to the Dennis Zine Show.
I feel like my old colleague Nate Holden. I don't look like him yet, but I'm getting old like my buddy Nate. No, you can call, I learned from Nate Holden, you can call everything special. But actually, I only have one more after this. Actually, all these issues are close and dear to my heart. The traffic safety, the drop program, this particular issue with the bandit taxis. And there was some concern, and I know we've had some meetings. It comes under Member Gruhl's committee. There were some meetings that were conducted, some issues with the enforcement from the DOT versus the police and this and that. I'd just like to find out if those matters have been worked out and if this bandit taxi program is actually working, because the bandits were wiping out the legitimate taxi industry in the city of Los Angeles. If you can just explain some of that.
Good morning, Tom Drischler, LADOT. As we reported, with the new operation, that the new programs that is happening with the LAPD, that we have a pretty dramatic increase in the number of arrests of bandits. But we did identify in the report some areas where we're hoping for some improvement. We realize that we're still very early on in the program itself, and there are a few tweaks that need to be made, but in general, we think we're going in the right direction. One of the things that we identified was the item of 30-day seizures of bandit vehicles. As you may recall, effective basically December of 2005, a Superior Court judge said that our investigators could no longer be recognized as having the authority to do the 30-day impounds. And we're seeking a change in legislation right now that will give them that authority back, because they actually were doing the 30-day seizures for a couple of years. But we were anticipating that LAPD would do the 30-day seizures as well, but they have not been doing that unless they have apprehended someone who has a want or a warrant or no driver's license. But we think they should be doing 30-day seizures in all cases. And my understanding is that they're going to be working out procedures with the Superior Court so that they can file affidavits and get that done, because that's certainly a very key enforcement tool, is those seizures.
Well, a question I have is that this is money being paid by the taxi industry for this enforcement, correct?
Right. It's coming out of an assessment. It's actually being paid by taxi cab customers in the way of a slight addition to the flag drop fee of 20 cents per trip. But it comes from the taxi operators themselves by way of an assessment, monthly assessment.
So the money comes in for enforcement, and it seems like the LAPD is on a different page as far as the impoundment and the seizure of those versus what we need to do to clean up that particular problem that's affecting the legitimate taxi industry. How do we get LAPD on the same page to do, and I've been out on a couple of these operations to see with the DOT personnel who are very dedicated. They don't have the equipment to stop these folks who are committing these violations, so that's why they need to have LAPD alongside with them. But the problem is, if LAPD is just citing them or give them a rest and let the cab go, it's going to be on the street that afternoon or that evening.
Right.
So how do we then, you're going to take this cab for at least 30 days or a longer period of time, book the radio system, book whatever you can, if we're going to really be serious about eliminating bandit taxi cabs, which cause injury and harm to the legitimate industry and hazard to the law-abiding person who gets in a taxi cab. If we're going to get serious about it, then how do we get DOT and LAPD on the same page to say, we want to be serious to put these folks out of business and let the legitimate taxi industry that's paying taxes, that's licensed, insured, et cetera, prosper. Other cities don't have this problem. This problem's been going around in LA for a long time, and it doesn't get any better until we get serious with our enforcement. So when do we get LAPD on the same page in this enforcement that's being paid for by the patrons who are riding in taxi cabs?
Yeah. Well, they've informed us that they're working closely with the Superior Court in Hollywood, which is the court where we send all of our bandit cases, and that they say very soon, no specific date, but very soon they're going to work out this procedure where they can do 30-day seizures in all bandit arrest cases.
But can't they do seizures now? Under the current law, they can't do seizures, or they can do seizures?
Under the current law, they can do seizures.
Okay,
you just have to work out a procedure of processing affidavits through the Superior Court. It's just a procedural issue.
And how long has this been lingering? this particular situation with the court?
Well, since December, since the operation began. But
So that's 4 months it's been in place, and you folks will do seizures. DOT will do a seizure, but LAPD won't.
well, no, we no longer can because we lost our authority, which to do the seizures.
How was that authority lost?
A Superior Court judge just decided December 2005 that he no longer recognized, he didn't recognize the authority of our investigators, who are not fully sworn police officers, to do the 30-day seizures.
Is that one
And
judge?
the city attorney advised us not to try to go to other judges. He said, you really need to get the law changed.
And
Which
we're
is
working-
unfortunate because we went to a lot of effort to get the law changed in the first place to allow us to do the 30-day seizures.
But DOT, parking enforcement can impound a car for 30 days, correct? A DOT enforcement, parking enforcement person? As I understand, they can recover stolen cars, they can impound cars, put holds on
I
cars.
presume so. I don't know much about...
Mr. Fisher, can you come forward and explain that, please? 'Cause I have a real problem with bandit taxi cabs that prey on innocent people in the city of Los Angeles, including tourists, and our inability to really handle this in a fashion that'll eliminate it. It's not something that we have to tolerate. It can be eliminated.
You wanted to know the pounding authority for parking enforcement.
Councilmember Grewal, was this heard in your committee?
Yeah.
Why don't I'm getting the
I
merry-go-round.
can give you an update, and I think I'm next on the queue. I would think, Mr.
Okay.
You are
Garcetti?
next on the queue.
And then if I can answer a couple things. One is, you're right on the issue relative to the seizure, and what we're asking for. We had submitted a motion last week to ask for resolution to get someone to sponsor legislation that would clear it up. We're also trying to push the city attorney's office a little bit to look at some of their opinion on that and to see if there's some flexibility, because we do think it is critical, just like when we had the street racing, and I know you were very active with me as well, which is there's nothing more serious than your car is taken away from you and you never get it back when you break the law. And so that is something that we think is very serious. And I know you were very active in the bandit taxi cabs, and I went on a sting operation myself and was surprised, as we've talked about in committee. I had this impression of a bandit taxi cab being one that looks like a taxi cab and has actually a logo on the side. In fact, many of these are taxi cabs. They show up, they're a Ford Explorer, a Honda Civic, no signage. People are getting into these vehicles.
Right.
Oftentimes, they don't have insurance. They don't have a driver's license, a valid driver's license. And clearly, they're not part of a system where we can ensure the safety of the passenger. And so the effort in having LAPD, which was a great idea, support DOT and vice versa, has been very effective. Excuse me, what's also been helpful, I think, as you mentioned, is how can LAPD do it beyond just their regular, the sting operations? And I think the captain that I spoke to, or detective, said, you know, they're doing this in various parts of the city, and they're training a number of the officers to be able to ascertain when it is a bandit taxi cab or not, and the ability to kind of share the information and education. So when those officers who may be in a sting operation are now going off to their regular patrol, they will have a better understanding and a better focus on trying to deal with this issue. And you're right, the number of taxi cabs that are bandit taxi cabs are in the thousands. And they're competing with other taxi cab drivers and companies that are obeying the rules and the laws. So we'd like to see the kind of legislation that would clear up the issue you've just brought up and talked to the Transportation Department about, and hope that we can get a sponsor in the state so there is no gray area on the issue of being able to take that vehicle.
Well, the question I have is, if one Superior Court judge does not agree with something, why isn't our city attorney taking that to an appeal within the courts? I can understand doing legislation, which is going to take a while to implement, and I'm sure our legislators in Sacramento would be positive and support that. But in the meantime, just because one judge doesn't like something, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the rule for the enforcement in the city of Los Angeles? Why isn't the city attorney being active in doing something with this? Mr. City Attorney?
I have a call out to Shelley Smith of our office on this note and file item, and she is returning her call to me.
That's one issue that remains. And the other, Mr. Fisher, is what DOT, the parking enforcement folks, they're able to impound cars that are stolen, correct? Recovering stolen vehicles?
Yes.
Yes, they're able to work with the police department, impound cars that are stolen, parked illegally.
And why wouldn't the investigators that are part of DOT, which I think they're called peace officers and not police officers, have that
peace officer status.
Peace officer have that authority to impound and to put a hold on a car? If a parking enforcement officer can do that.
Well, we believed we did. I think that matter is being looked at right now because of what the judge has indicated.
And they do in cases where the driver has no driver's license or a want or a warrant, but not in bandit cases per se.
So the typical situation would be an arrest and no impoundment of the car, or just an impound to get it out?
Right, an arrest, catch and release, basically. Yeah.
And what kind of fines are we seeing in court?
Upwards of $400.
Which is the cost of doing business?
Depending, it's certainly within the cost of doing business, but if you take the vehicle away, then they're out of business.
Right. Has this been taken to the supervising judge of the Superior Court? Because one judge interpretation doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the rule for all the enforcement. And for us to seize enforcement because of one judge's decision, I have a question with that.
Yeah. Well, the word we received from the city attorney is, don't do any more 30-day seizures. Period. But
Professor Batnigan.
Is Ms. Smith going to be here?
Not on this item today. If we want to put this over, is there any urgency to this item?
I'm going to suggest what we could do is, adopt this motion or adopt this report with instructions for the city attorney to come back to report to transportation, whatever other committee, on how we can pursue this, because we agree with you 100%, and that's why we thought we would do kind of parallel tracks, one legislatively and then the other really challenging the decision by that judge and the opinion of the city attorney that we can, in fact, I agree with you. I don't understand if we can take their vehicle when they're involved in a street race,
right,
that we should be able to do the same in this instance as well.
Again, this is based on one judge's opinion, and I think that we have a city attorney's office that can challenge that opinion. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is I've talked to taxi drivers, legitimate taxi drivers, who are crying for help, saying that they're losing their income, they're losing their opportunity to be taxi drivers because the van is coming up. It's just like a person owns a flower shop and someone comes up and sells flowers in front of that flower shop, they're going to put them out of business. And we need to address it. And again, in other cities, they don't have bandit taxi cabs. Here they flourish, and it's not anything new. It's been going on for years.
So I think what we can do is, as we push forward the resolution, at the same time, look with the city attorney's office and ask them to report back on this issue to pursue.
Is that a formal move?
That is a
second,
formal
Mr.
move.
Zahn?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and open the roll. As amended, close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you. That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item is item 14, and that was called special by Councilmember Gruhl.
Ms. Gruhl, item number 14.
Thank you. Do we have staff from the sorry, sitting right there, John. Colleagues, this is an item where we went out to a school in my district and were asking some questions as we were educating people about school starting again in January and the importance of signage around our schools. And in some conversations and looking into it, we found that there was new regulations by the Federal Highway Administration on, it's called Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That means the signs around those schools. And when we first asked the question, we were told by the department that it would be 10 years to implement those regulations. But since then, they have come back and said it actually would be 2 years to do that location. The issue had been we didn't have the data for what signs we had around those schools and to the cost of those signs. So if you could, John, explain to us, one, how we got from 10 years now to 2 years, and the cost that we thought was millions of dollars is $400,000 that the department can do, and the data, which we didn't think exist. So I kind of want to understand that. If you could hold my time.
Thank you, Councilmember Grohl. We have several measures underway to address school safety. We have our educational measures, our enforcement measures, and the focus of your motion was on the traffic control devices. And I think some information that may have been given to you was informal, wasn't researched, and that's why in the report we wanted to make sure that we gave you a more analyzed answer on this matter. We have a number of traffic control devices that are required at schools to warn of school crosswalks, to better warn when you're entering a school zone. And these standards have changed over the years. And we've been responsible for those changes because we advise the Federal Highway Administration as well as the Caltrans on those standards to be used nationally as well as to be used within the state. And those changes pertain to school crosswalks and school zones. We analyzed that there are nearly 5,000 signs that have to be changed out to better warn of the school zones and the school crosswalks. And we are already underway with having changed out about 40% of those. So we have about another 60% to go. And we have a program underway that will make sure that we do it by the end of June in 2009. These have to be changed out according to the national and state guidelines by January of 2011. So we'll be a year and a half ahead of that timeline. Again, I think the information that had been given to you was informal, wasn't researched. The persons who had answered that had not fully discussed the department's program on that. So we're sorry for the misinformation, but I think you'll see from the information contained in the report that we're well on target to meeting the national and state standards and our commitment to school safety.
Do you have the data for all of the signs around schools that currently exist? Do we know all of the signs that exist around the schools?
When we developed the route to school maps that were issued in November of this year, that was the first comprehensive new look at all the schools in the city, elementary and middle schools, 565 schools. At that time, we researched all of the school controls, the stop signs around the schools, the school crosswalks, the traffic signals, and the deployment of crossing guards. And so we have now all of those in our inventory.
And the priority replacement will be at elementary schools. Is that your first go to the elementary schools and then middle schools? I know this does not include high schools, correct?
The route to school maps did not include high schools, just elementary and middle schools. But our replacement of school signs will be at all of those, and we'll be doing those concurrently throughout the city. We'll visit certain areas of the city, take care of the elementary and middle schools and high schools all at the same time, and then move on to another area of the city.
Okay. And maybe I'd like to maybe talk to you about that, because I think in some areas, elementary schools are probably our most dangerous situations. One, because they're little kids, hard to see. They don't understand all of the traffic kinds of things that would occur, and the potential is greater. Because I had thought what we were looking at was going to elementary schools first, then middle schools and high schools. And you're saying we're clustering kind of those that are in the same area?
We're clustering, and within the next 26 months, we're going to address all of those areas, the elementary schools and middle schools. It's certainly more efficient for our crews when they're in a certain area to take care of the middle school, which may be 3 blocks away from the elementary school, rather than to travel to another elementary school that may be more distant.
And this, you're replacing certain signs because they've been updated. I know crosswalks, for example, now instead of just saying crosswalk, have an arrow going down as you drive in those communities and those neighborhoods around schools. Will you also be placing new signs? Were there requirements that you need additional signs that were never there before in certain areas?
Yes, where we have a boulevard that may have a speed most of the time higher than 25 miles an hour, and then in the school zone it's 25 when children are present, we'll be adding signs, if they haven't been added already, that tells the motorist there is a school ahead, so that the motorists can prepare and slow down, so that once they enter the zone, they will have decelerated to 25 miles an hour, rather than the old method where we say, you're entering a school zone, but you may be traveling at 35 as you enter the school zone.
And that was the issue at Coldwater Elementary School that we were concerned about, because the sign literally was at the right when you hit the school. And by that time, you know, you cannot slow down to that 25. You need to know when you're crossing one of the other major streets to slow down before you get to that school.
Right.
So that would be helpful. If I could, and I'm not sure if this was included in the report, a report back in 6 months on the status?
Yes.
If it's not included in the report, I would ask that we just amend it to, it is. Okay. Thank you very much. See, I was remembering something. So thank you, Mr. President. I did want to just alert people that this is an issue that is important around our schools, and that it's better news than it was on the first reporting that we had in our committee.
Thank you, Ms. Rule. Thank you. You can open the roll on this item, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 15, call special by Councilmember Zine.
Back to the Dennis Zine
This
show.
is my final one of the day, the final one of the day. We have a representative here from, what department, sir?
Sean Hyrie, Department of Transportation.
Department of Transportation. Question I have, this is about private ambulance rates.
Yes, sir.
How do these rates compare to LA Fire Department ambulance rates for basic and the life support? Are they comparable, higher, lower? Where do they come?
They're lower, sir, because they're set as a different type of a rate. LA Fire Department is a different entity because they provide 911 emergency service. These ambulance providers that work within the city of Los Angeles are not allowed to respond to 911 emergencies.
So is LA City rates higher or lower for the fire
City
department?
rates are lower, sir.
They're lower than this?
Yes.
Because these rates, $378, advanced life support, a new rate of 600. It's going from 378 to 650?
Advanced life support that the fire department or other emergency respondents provide are a much different service than advanced life support than that a ambulance company within the city of Los Angeles, a private ambulance company operating within the city of Los Angeles provides.
So there's basic and there's advanced. So basic is 378 and advanced is 650?
Yes, sir. For the I don't have the current rate in front of me. I have the report that I submitted to the T committee, which is from the previous year, because they asked for a rate study. But I would have to assume that those numbers are correct that you're referring to.
That's what I have in the report. And then the other question I have is the rate of recovery. LA City Fire responds to an incident, transports someone to a hospital. There's a charge for that.
Right.
Private ambulance transports someone. There's a charge for that. What is the private ambulance rate of recovery versus LA City rate of recovery on that service provided?
I don't have that information, but the private ambulance companies claim that the patients that have insurance coverage get a reduced rate back for the services they provide. And the patients who don't have insurance coverage and have to pay out of pocket sometimes pay the full price and sometimes never pay at all. So
how many don't pay at all compared to LA City Fire?
The unofficial number that the ambulance companies have given me is of the patients that don't have insurance coverage and pay cash, usually about 20 to 25% pay the full price, and the rest of them either don't pay or pay a reduced fare.
So 80% aren't paying?
That's the number they give me. I have no way of verifying that because that information is privileged, and for me to have that, I would have to make an official request to private ambulance companies, and they would have to provide all their financial documents. And we just have never done that. We don't have any reason for asking for that.
What's the rate of recovery for LA City?
For the LA City Fire Department?
On the bill that we send out, what's the rate of recovery that we receive back?
I don't know that, sir. I'll have to check with the fire department.
Okay, I would suggest in the future you try and get some idea on the rate of recovery because it's costing for that service, whether it be a private or the city ambulance service. I know the county doesn't transport. The county responds and the private ambulances transport.
The county divides up the county jurisdiction into different zones, and each zone is given through an RFP process to a private ambulance company provider. And that company is responsible for providing 911 service for that zone. My unofficial contact, again, with fire department has been that a lot of times they don't get anywhere near what they charge because they're responding to emergencies. They don't have time to check for insurance coverage, so they just provide the service and bill later. And most often than not, they don't get full payment.
Is there any kind of follow-up to the credit reporting agencies or trying to get that bill paid?
Again, that would be a fire department function. I would have to check with them, sir.
I'd appreciate if you do, you let me know.
Of course.
Because the concern is the cost that we're paying, we're coming to the budget times, the cost and the recovery for that particular service.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. You can open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. If we can take items 20 and 28 and 35 and 39 together, please, and set it for 5 minutes. And Mr. Dog, you've got those items before us.
Oh, you're going to give me combined time?
Combined time, that's all that's left on the agenda right now, so
I
take
love-
it as you want.
I love the Zuma Dog 5 minutes public comment on the record. First of all, I'd like to make a request, if possible, counsel, please don't give interviews to the LA Times reporter, Jack Weiss, when I'm giving public comment. I don't think we should be giving interviews to LA Times reporters during public comment. That's what the rest of it's for.
If you could please keep to the items that are before
Yes,
us.
thank you. Number 20, that is for storm drain easement for drainage purposes. I'd like to say I was downtown yesterday. The city cannot even handle a quorum's worth of rain on the street. So I'd like to say, please get these storm drains cleared. In case you noticed, it wasn't raining when I walked in for public comment on Friday. After the 3-hour dog and pony show waste parade, I walked outside afterwards and the streets were completely flooded. So again, I think number one priority, Mayor, it's not your fault. I'm not passing blame. This problem was before the mayor got here. But we do have a problem downtown when it rains with the side street, with the streets getting puddles, and then the people are walking in the middle of the streets, and then the buses can't move and the traffic gets congested, so please do that. Let's see what else we got here. We got so many important things. What was the next one? Because you took them all out. 28. Yeah, let's see what the next item up for bid on the council's Price is Right. We've got communication for land dedication of public streets. Now here's something. The good thing about Zuma Dog being on TV, I was down at the coffee shop a little bit ago and a staffer from the planning department, not a big official, just somebody who types stuff up, said, gee, Zuma, you got to start looking for land dedications and track map approvals. That's the first thing you got to do when you want to build a high density in the city. You got to dedicate the land. That's like the sidewalk. So I'd like to say, constituents, there's way too many land dedications, and I want to make sure that these land dedications that are used for track map approvals that precede the condo conversions and the condo building are not in violation of vacancy rates. There must be 5% vacancy rate in the city before you can do any of these condo conversions and kick people out of their homes because there's no affordable housing in the street once you kick them out, and then they can't afford it. So watch these land, because what happens is they say, oh, we've got an apartment building, these land dedications, they go, wow, well, we got an apartment that's affordable and under rent control. Well, who wants to do that? So we're going to do a condo conversion because then we don't have to stick to Ellis Act. We can kick everybody out and charge $1.5 million. But you can't sell them because nobody can afford them in this town. So then what happens is they say, oh, we're just going to rent them. We can't sell them. Sorry, $1,700. And that happens all around town, so you got to watch for these land dedications when it comes to that. Make sure you're not doing that anymore, because now you're on the record. Y'all, yeah, I'll be watching West Magnolia Valley Village for that. 31.
No, 35 is the next
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry, 35. You get a pass on 31. We got special event fees. No. First of all, Zuma Dog would like to say thank you to Jack Weiss, because he's the one that brought to the attention of the special event fee waiver abuse back in 2002. And I've been blasting on it, and I'd like to say instead of 20 shady, corrupt items on here a day, now it's cut back to about 1. And this time it's NFL Draft Party. Excuse me, the NFL National Football League. These special event fee monies are supposed to be for local, community, non-profit events that do not charge admission to the public. In case, let's say, a church or community event wants to have a kids fair or something and they just don't have enough money to pay for the police and the services that it costs, so they give a little special event fee waiver, which means the city picks up the fee. But what happens is you're giving that money to the NFL, All right, well, I don't like that, y'all, so let's move on.
39 is your last one.
Where's the last one? Well, then let me go back to the,
So
what about track map?
39 is the last one.
Oh, 39 is the last one. Track maps, y'all. Yeah. Thank you once again to the planning person who works in the planning department who stopped me at the coffee shop and said, Zuma Dog, you talk about so many good things. You got to start watching these track maps that come through on the agenda because there's way too many of them coming through more than ever. It's an avalanche, a river that runs deep of shadiness with these track maps. And I'd like to say, excuse me, Councilmember Labange, I know you're not listening now, so I'd like to know if all your track maps,
Sir,
do you know if they're in violation? Okay,
voice
City
down a little
Council,
bit.
I would
Thank
like
you.
to know if Councilmember Labange is aware of his track maps as to whether they're in violation of vacancy rates, as to whether there's affordable housing components built in, as to whether the Ellis Act triple rotationcy rates are going to be paid off, okay? So you don't have to listen to me, but I hope that you already are listening because you know those things. So too many track maps coming through. That's the first thing when you build these high-density condos. And people that have worked in the planning department say there's way too many coming in. And again, there's no infrastructure. So for example, you got the track maps. I don't know if this is one in the Valley Village, West Magnolia, where you got traffic impacts that haven't been completed yet. You got narrow roads, you got no sewage, the streets are overcrowded, the schools are overcrowded, the police can't enforce, and that's what's happening in the city. You got density problems. Zuma Dog, and you're on the record, y'all.
Thank you. Just a factual correction on item 35B. The special event is being reimbursed all costs to the city by the folks who are having the special event. Wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you.
This is closes the comment on those items. If we can open the roll on those, close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Mr. Rosendahl, I'd like to recognize you. I know you wanted to say a word about number 12. Just about the woman that we honored.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity to do it. And I know Wendy Gruhl feels the same way I do, but I just wanted to shout it out since we did it on consent, and people just need to know about this. We named a block just today, went through committee, on Ventura Place between Laurel Canyon and Ventura Boulevard, the Dr. Betty Brazon Place. And the reason we did that is that the late Betty Brazon, a psychotherapist and author, devoted her life to groundbreaking work improving the quality of life for lesbians, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. In 1971, she helped to start the first gay group with the Psychiatric Association, the American Psychiatric Association, that dropped homosexuality from its list of mental illnesses 2 years later. This is a big deal, folks. What happened in 71 is gay people, like myself, were no longer considered sick and sinners. It's another expression of nature, and nature comes from God, and God makes no mistakes. And this helped change the dynamic for us in this great country. Dr. Brazon authored 5 books, including the bestseller Permanent Partners, Building Gay and Lesbian Relationships That Last. These books provided a roadmap for fellow homosexuals in setting them straight, she suggested, how to handle homophobia. In Permanent Partners and The Intimacy Dance, she talked about building long-term gay relationships. She held leadership positions in numerous organizations as follows: the National President, the Gay Academic Union, Board of Directors of the LA Gay and Lesbian Community Service Center. She was a member of the board of the Whitman Radcliffe Foundation, board director, National Gay Rights Advocates, and so on and so forth. And she was truly a leader in the community. Many of us got to know her over the years. I did. I took her as a personal friend. And Terry DiCrescenzo, her partner of many years, is the survivor of it. And I just want to thank us all for naming a street after her, for her great leadership and contribution to us in this community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti, and thank you, Mr. Rosendahl, for calling it special. This was a motion that we co-signed together. It's in my district, and she lived in my district as a friend of Mr. Rosendahl's for many years, and I think you eloquently described her many accomplishments that she had, and it's really our pleasure and honor because she wrote not only the book as you described, but was an activist in this country, and one that I think we're very proud to be able to designate this small area in her honor. And so thank you for a unanimous support, again, when we vote on it now.
We were just informally giving a little background. We've voted on it, and it's moved ahead, so thank you both for that, those additional comments. Madam Clerk, next order of business.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Labange requests to be excused May 1st, 2nd, and 4th. For city business, a motion is required on the 4th.
I'll move that. Ms. Gruhl will second. That is excuses granted. Next items.
Councilmember Weiss requests to be excused July 10th and 11th for personal business. That meets council policy.
Mr. Weiss is excused.
Councilmember Zine requests to be excused May 8th and 9th for city business. That meets council policy.
Mr. Zine is excused.
Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused Wednesday, May 2nd, to leave at 11:45 for city business. That meets council policy.
Ms. Hahn is excused.
And Councilmember Rosendahl requests to be excused Tuesday, May 8th for city business. That meets council policy.
Mr. Rosendahl is excused.
And that clears the desk.
Okay, announcements, colleagues? Now it's time for announcements. Do you have any community announcements? Mr.
Members,
Labange?
this afternoon, as you know, that horrific fire of over 150 acres in the Hollywood Hills 3 weeks ago. We're calling the B Shift together to meet with the community members who really wanted to thank their firefighters for that fire stop of March 30th. So we'll be meeting this afternoon, and our Mayor Villaraigosa will be joining us as well at Lake Hollywood Park in the afternoon. So thank you for, as we all do, thank our firefighters for their work each and every day.
Thank you very much. Other announcements? Ms. Hahn, do you have announcements? No? Okay. If I can ask everybody to rise, please, for adjourning motions. If I can ask everybody in council chambers to please rise. Colleagues, I know a number of us will be mentioning Representative Juanita Millender McDonald, who passed away this Sunday of cancer. She was somebody who fought quite heroically and was consumed quite quickly in the end by her disease, but her life was defined not by how it ended, but how she lived it. She was an amazing pioneer, somebody who served in the California State Assembly and also served, I know, overlapping with Ms. Hahn's district and some of our other members' district as a member of Congress. And recently, she had just become chair of the subcommittee that was looking at elections in America, which was a fitting position for a woman who had fought to make sure that there was access, whether it was when she was on the city council here locally, whether it was when she was at state government or in federal government. And she also was somebody who gave tirelessly to the community long before she ever was elected to it. In fact, her election was a reflection of that. We have a number of people I know who want to say a few things, but I know the people of the 37th Congressional District certainly had one of the top representatives in the country in Representative Millender McDonald. She was a friend of mine, a friend of my family for many, many years. She had an early interest in politics in 1982, working on Tom Bradley's bid to be governor of California, and then pitched in on local races in Carson, where she eventually served on the city council. She was very skilled at building support networks and at building community networks and weaving people together. She once said that, she said, quoted, when she asked, then I think Assemblymember Dimely to support her for Carson City Council in 1990, she said, I said, local politics is too divisive. I don't want to get involved. This is Dimely recalling this. She came back, this time with a delegation of friends and supporters. I said, what do you want? She said, I need your endorsement. Dimely chuckled. I said, you have it. I think she continuously impressed people in that way of how she was able to bring out the positive of politics. At a time when there's a lot of shrillness in politics, a lot of divisiveness in politics, she always stood for uniting us together. So with that, I know another number of members would like to say something as well. Ms. Gruhl and then Ms. Hahn.
Just add, we were all shocked on Sunday to hear of her passing, and the fact that we had just learned a few days before about how sick she had been and moving to a hospice, and we were all saying our prayers. And I know I saw Congresswoman Diane Watson on Sunday, and she mentioned that a number of the congressional members had just done a video on Friday to give to her, and they were going to send it to her Monday, that talked about what an impact she had had on this region and across the country, on the issues of AIDS, on the issues of standing up for people who didn't have a voice. She really was an extraordinary woman, and someone I know that as an elected official, we looked up to her. When we thought about running for office, she was someone who broke the barriers, was an individual I know that will be missed by so many of us, and she left us way too soon.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn?
Well, I certainly agree with Councilwoman Gruhl. I was absolutely shocked when I got the phone call early Sunday morning, because it was just recently that she actually made an announcement that she would be taking a leave of absence from Congress. We all thought it was a leave of absence to focus on recovering and her treatment, and little did we know that it was a permanent leave of absence from Congress. But, you know, she was an amazing woman, and I think for all of us as women, look to Juanita Millender McDonald's life as being one of sort of just new chapters after new chapters. I mean, she was 40. She had married her husband, Jim, raised 5 kids, and then she went to get her bachelor's degree at 40. Then she went on to get her master's degree in education, and then it was after that she got involved in local politics and, as was said, ran for the Carson City Council, then surprised everybody and ran for the assembly seat, a newly drawn assembly seat where there were 2 men running in the race. And she surprised everybody by winning that race, and then, of course, went on to win the congressional seat. She got great help from women's groups because we all looked at her as really being a role model for women of color, who still, you know, had a more difficult time raising money and proving to people that you were a serious political candidate. She loved to tell all of us, you know, don't let the men push you around. So Juanita, if anything, she was about girl power and about empowering all of us. When I ran for Congress unsuccessfully in 1998, she was one of those members that not only encouraged me, endorsed me, but she basically took several of her staff members and sent them over and said, we've got to help Janice win. So she really not only just spoke about encouraging women who are running for office, she really followed it through with her actions. For me, in my district, I stood toe-to-toe with Juanita many times, or actually I should say side by side, as we stood toe-to-toe to those who would try to do things that were destructive to our joint constituency. She stood with me on port security. She stood with me on helping to reduce the pollution that the port has and an impact on the surrounding communities. She stood with me and held more meetings in Watts on trying to prevent the closure of the Martin Luther King Hospital. And she got the federal folks, the accreditors, all the bureaucrats, and she made them come to Watts. And she made them face the people when they talked about their number crunching and their you know, evaluations that they were doing. And then just 6 weeks ago, she brought the Secretary of HUD, Alfonso Jackson, to Watts, and we met in Nickerson Gardens. And she wanted a cabinet member of the Bush administration to come to Watts and meet the people who were most impacted by the decisions they made on the East Coast. So I loved her dearly. She was always impeccably dressed. When she walked in a room, you just felt a presence of a gracious woman, but a woman who was not afraid to fight for her people. So she will be missed very much. I felt very honored to know her and consider her my colleague and work alongside with her.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn and Mr. President there, and Ms. Gruhl, and your remarks as well. I didn't know it as well, but I loved her spirit as a person, and with Avak and Jim Seeley in Congress, walking the floors of Congress, she was always so nice and so helpful, and even though my district was far from her district, as a Los Angeles representative, she was very, very nice, and in fact, one time on the stairwells, they turned around, we came and greeted each other, which just shows the human part of her. She was a very nice person. And just last fall, I believe it was, I attended her event at the Carson City Hall, where she honors everybody in her district, and an interesting district at that, of all the different cities, and give them some praise and love for their involvement in community. She was a great representative, and members in public, and all, every day is a blessing. We don't know which day, our day that we get called, but for her family, the 5 children, a husband. We send our greetings of blessing and strength for a wonderful woman.
Thank you. Mr. Parks.
And also was very surprised. I went to an event Sunday, and I had not been listening to the news, and I heard Diane Watson talking about the Congresswoman, and she mentioned the word memorial, and the first thing that crossed your mind, we asked people at the table, what was she referring to? And we found that was the first we found that she just passed away. But I also recall, as a police officer, we used to deal with her on a number of issues, particularly dealing with housing development. And probably the one that stands out the most, and Janice, you remember this, when she brought the CIA director to the housing developments to talk about this whole issue of whether narcotics was being brought in the community and CIA was winking at it. It was probably the worst meeting I've ever gone to, in the sense of people were absolutely on the edge of their seats. There was complete disarray, and she was the only cool one in the room, because we were trying to figure out were we going to get out of that room, and she was the only one that kept the tone and made the CIA director speak directly to the issue, to talk about it. I don't know whether it impacted him, because he resigned shortly after that. And so then we've dealt with a number of the housing development issues. And then most recently, not on this trip for the National League of Cities, but a previous one to Washington, I went through the halls of Congress looking for her, and they said she's in a room, and I opened the door, and she was holding a subcommittee. She invited me up on the dais to be a part of the subcommittee, and completely unexpected, but she says, well, just come up and tell people what you know about this issue, and you're going, what is the issue? And so she had ability to bring you into what she was doing, but she's always been a first-class person and someone that never lost sight of where she came from, always community-oriented, always reaching out to the community, but clearly understood her issues and was a go-to person that we all forget about how much Julian Dixon meant to us on transportation. She filled that void to a great degree on bringing funds into the city of LA, so we will miss her.
Thank you. Anybody else on the Congresswoman? If not, all members will be on that. Colleagues, I also ask that we adjourn today in memory of a young man who served in our armed forces, Lieutenant Commander Kevin J. Davis, 32 years old, of the Navy's Blue Angels, who died on Saturday as his plane clipped a stand of pine trees before it went down in a South Carolina neighborhood. His parents were in the crowd when the plane crashed. He was based out of Pensacola, the Naval Air Station there, where it was last summer, and where we watched the Navy Blue Angels fly each day, an incredible, incredible team. And this crash happened as the team was performing its final maneuver. The maneuver I've seen many, many times. The 6 pilots were joining from behind the crowd of thousands to form what's a triangle shape that's known as a delta, but his jet did not join the formation. And moments later, it crashed just outside the Marine Corps Air Station in Beaufort, hitting homes in a neighborhood about 35 miles northwest of Hilton Head. He was a Pittsfield, Massachusetts native and was in his second year with the Blue Angels, a team that's known as among the best flyers, if not the best flyers in the world. He was a decorated pilot, joined the Blue Angels in 2005, and he had previously served as a narrator for the air shows, handling celebrity flights and flying with stars. He is somebody who will be missed in the armed services, but most importantly by his family and by his country. May he rest in peace. Are there adjourning motions? Mr. Alarcon?
Yes, members, it's very sad when somebody so young is stricken with breast cancer and passes away, so I'm asking we adjourn in memory of Sandra Veronica Torres. At 33 years old, she had become a teacher in LAUSD, having taught in North Hollywood at Lancashire Elementary, as well as most recently Osceola Elementary School in Sylmar. But she's also related to the city family in that her husband is Sergeant Adrian Torres, who is assigned to Mission Station, and having served at Foothill for many years. She leaves her little 3-year-old daughter, Alexis, and her mother, father, Eva and Rafael Menchaca, her brother, Alonso Menchaca, and of course, Sergeant Torres. It's a reminder that we have a lot of work to do to continue to know more about breast cancer, and certainly it's an important point to be made that there are early detection opportunities for women, and so it's important that we remind women to use those early detection opportunities whenever possible. So we are certainly grieving for the family and who is part of our family in the city of Los Angeles, but particularly because at such a young age we lose a fine teacher and supporter of the Los Angeles Police Department. By the way, she started as a police explorer when she was a teenager, so she's very much a part of our family.
Thank you, Mr. Alarcon. All members. Mr. Rosendahl.
Mr. President, one is quite a well-known figure in today's paper that I had the pleasure of knowing in 1971-72. I ran the state of Illinois for McGovern, and we used to share when he was in town and I was in town the same room. And he would have it, and then I would get it and go back and forth. And during that period, he actually wrote a book that was called The Best and the Brightest. I'm talking about David Halberstam. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, was killed Monday in a car crash in the Bay Area. He was only 73, winner of the Pulitzer Prize in 1964 for his Vietnam coverage for the New York Times. He went on to write 21 books. And as I mentioned, his 1972 book, that's when I knew him, was The Missteps of American Leaders in Vietnam. It was called The Best and the Brightest. It became a classic. He was born April 10th, 1934 in New York City, the son of a surgeon father and a teacher mother. He died Monday, just now, from massive internal injuries suffered in a car crash at Mellow Park down near Dumbarton Bridge in the San Mateo County. 3 others were injured. Now survived is his wife Jean and Julia, also in New York City. May he rest in peace. The other is more personal on the local level here. Margaret Johnson, who was the aunt of Mark Antonio Grant, my 11th District Southern District Director. Even though she lost her mother at the age of 9 and has spent much of her teens in foster care, she never complained about the hand she was dealt. She lived a simple and decent life in the township of Salem all those years. She was a loving wife, nurturing mother, and an adorable aunt, according to Mark Antonio Grant. In her latter years, with the assistance of her daughter-in-law, she would go to Atlantic City casinos and always gave her winnings to charity. She's survived by her 90-year-old sister, Mabel Belafonte, her daughter-in-law, Donna Johnson, and her 2 grandchildren, Edwin Johnson III and Reginald Johnson. Because Margaret Johnson is in heaven, the stars will shine much brighter in the evening skies. May she rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Any other adjourning motions? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. This meeting of the Los Angeles City Council is adjourned. Have a great afternoon, and we will see you tomorrow.